Welcome back to Algebra 1. So your next step is to be able to solve using all of the different methods that we've used for quadratic equations. There's a couple different methods, and I'll give you a section of kind of each to do, and then a section that will be, you get to pick which way you're going to solve, why would you choose that method. So I expect you to go back and look through your notes, or maybe you have to go back to your videos a little bit to remember how to do the different methods. So a couple of the methods that we have used. We can use graphing. And graphing is very useful when we don't expect to get the exact numbers. An estimate is okay. And it's a really good way to check and see if our solutions that we got in another method are actually reasonable. Second method, very, very common method, factor. We always want to try to factor. And it's really useful for a couple different methods. It's actually useful even when the constant term is 0, because we can factor out a greatest common factor. And sometimes that helps us to factor the other ways. But it doesn't always work. Then we can take square roots. Square roots are useful for a couple different ways. When we don't see an actual middle term, they come in these two different forms. A number times x squared equals a constant, or something in parentheses squared equals a constant. I don't see an x term by itself. This guy is x squared, and this is hidden in FOIL. So we do want to be able to use the square root property. It's very useful and easy when it's available. Completing the square does work, and it works every time, but sometimes it's really evil. So when we like to use completing the square right now is going to be when a is 1 and b is even. That way we don't get stuck with any fractions. When we do it for those, it's actually faster than the quadratic formula. And when all else fails, quadratic formula. So those are the methods that we're going to use. And let's just take a look at some examples and why we would choose different things. So in this particular case, we notice the way that it's set up. I could actually solve this using completing the square method because a is 1, b is even, so I can go straight to saying on the left-hand side of the problem that x minus 5 squared equals 1 plus 25. So it's a very quick start to these types of problems when a is 1, b is even, and it was even set up the way that we really like it to be. So then we're going to take the square root of both of those sides, and we're going to get x minus 5 on one side, and on the other side we get positive or negative the square root of 26. And 26 does not have any perfect squares in it. If I want to move this guy over, I'm going to end up with 5 plus or minus the square root of 26, and if I want to get the estimates of those, I can. But those are exact answers, and it gives it to me. There were not very many steps there. So can I look for factors? Possibly, but I'm going to be looking for factors of 48 that add to negative 48 that add to get me negative 13. I actually do recognize that there are some factors there. But when I do factor this, I have to remember a couple things. Remember, I'm going to have to put this guy back. So I can have negative 16 over 2, because remember that's a. I'm putting it back in. And this guy is going to be positive 3. That's not going to work for me. 8. So 16 times 3 does get me 48, but I have to put the 2 back. And then because I'm going for solutions, I'm going to go straight to x minus 8 equals 0, and x plus 3 over 2 equals 0. So that is going to give me solutions of positive 8 and negative 3 over 2. Again, I didn't see a whole bunch of steps here. Do I have factors of 12 that add to get me 8? If I have those, I'm going to go straight to factoring. and that's going to be positive 6 and positive 2. And setting each of those ones equal to 0, x is going to be negative 6 and negative 2. So we preferred factoring. We completed the square. This one actually wouldn't factor because we didn't get an exact answer. Well, we did get an exact answer. We didn't get a rational answer. Taking a look at these. Notice that I'm always going to look at those couple first methods before I try anything else. And if I do x plus 12 and x minus 1, those add to give me b and multiply to give me c, so x equals negative 12 and positive 1. Do I see a middle term? I'm actually going to move this guy over. So because I don't have x by itself completely, I am actually going to divide by 9. And x squared equals 1. So the square root of x equals positive and negative 1. The square root of 1 is 1. We know this. Notice I didn't jump into quadratic formula. So this guy here, multiplying these two, the factors of 5 that give me negative 1, that doesn't happen. A is not 1, b is not even. This is one that I would do quadratic formula for. So recognizing that a is 5, b is negative 1, and c is negative 1. And fill in the blank form of the equation. So many places to make little mistakes on this guy, guys. Remember, this is under the entire thing, 2 times a. So what am I plugging in there? B, A, C, and A again. Simplifying that, the 4 places I'm going to simplify, this is 1 plus or minus, denominator is 10, square root of negative 1 squared. Negative 4 times 5 times negative 1 is going to be plus 20. This becomes 21, and I don't see any nice easy ways to simplify this. So we are going to leave it in this format. That is 2 answers. One is plus and one is minus. Problem number 16. If I move the 2x to the other side, a is 1, b is even. So now I'm going to complete the square. So x minus half of b, half of b squared becomes 5 plus 1. So this becomes 6. Square root of 6 is positive or negative, and x minus 1. I'm going to add 1 to both sides, and I end up with 1 plus or minus the square root of 6. When this is right, the easy one to use, it's a little bit smaller than the quadratic formula, even though for both of these I needed to do something that was going to get me this square root. That's an ugly 6. That is a 6. Okay, so that's what you're doing. You'll have an assignment that will last you for the week this time when you are doing all of the different methods and then choosing. So I might have this one worth double, but it's going to be one full assignment. So the assignment's on Google Classroom, and have a good day.